And I'm going to mute everyone at that point, Rose, and then you can unmute.
Okay,
Let me know when you're ready.
so to those we can see and those we can't see, welcome this morning. We're excited.
Hey, Rose, let me, I'm gonna mute them right now, okay? Then you can get
All
started.
right,
Okay.
all right, Rich. So to everyone who is with us and who is in process of joining us, I'd like to welcome you this morning. We're very excited to have our panel. And in this time of run up to election and then kind of heart pounding, figuring out what's going to happen with all the votes being counted, I went back and I looked at a reflection that Sister Joan Chittister did shortly before the election, and I'd like to read it at least in part now. So I invite you to just get comfortable in your seat wherever you are and just take a couple of deep breaths to bring yourself totally into the present. She titles this Public Virtue in Obedience to God's Will of Love. She says at the beginning that in all of her years of traveling around the world, one thing has been present. Everywhere there are people who, despite finding themselves mired in periods of national disruption or personal marginalization, refuse to give up the thought of a better future or to give in to a deteriorating present. They don't lose hope that the values they learned in the best of times, or the courage it takes to reclaim their world from the worst of times, are worth the commitment of their lives. In this faith, open hearts, and piercing courage from people of every level of society that carries us through every major social breakdown to the emergence of the humanization of humanity, we're grateful. They are the prophets of each era who prod the rest of the world into seeing newly what it means to be fully alive personally, nationally, and spiritually. So in this courageous commitment to the will of God for creation, whatever the cost to themselves, it's in the prophetic tradition. And she goes on to say that we're called to that same prophetic tradition, to make real God's word of love, to make that word the center and the axle and the standard of everything that we do in the midst of storm. Our task is to be obedient to that will of God, which is love for the world. And so that makes all the difference to us. And while the Christian ideal is personal goodness, Christianity also requires that we each be so much a prophetic presence that our corner of the world becomes a better place because we have been there. And so we pray, oh great love, thank you for living and loving in and through us, for the example of so many people that we know personally that will never be known more widely, who embody this love and determination, courage, deep faith. We ask that you let that grow in us, that we may understand what it means to become brothers and sisters in you. Amen. Oh, thank you, everyone. Next, I'm going to...
Thank you, Rosemary.
You're very welcome, Val. So I'd like to turn this over now to Bill O'Brien, who's going to introduce our panel and our panelists.
Thank you, Rosemary Inslee. A little background for those that might be new and for our guest speakers. Rosemary is the chairman of the board of directors of Strangers No Longer. And the faces that are on your screen here are members of the board of Strangers No Longer, and some of them circle leaders. So we certainly want to welcome our three first panelists, and that's my neighbor, Senator Bullock, Marshall Bullock, who's a district senator of Senate District number 2. And then, of course, we've already introduced her a little bit, but Congresswoman Dingell, I don't think she needs any introductions. Number of us got to know her, and her husband, who's looking down on us. We have to, I want a shout out for him and his example and courage. And then Oscar Chacon. Oscar Chacon is the director of a international, multinational network of organizations, grassroots organizations that are immigrant-run, immigrant-led organizations of immigrants. Now, during this panel, there's 3 guiding questions that we'll be asking each of them. And during this time, you might, if you have any questions or if you want to move in a direction, just put it in the chat and we'll be watching the chat. I'm going to ask Rich Faba, is there any directions? Do you want people to do anything special or are we okay?
No, as we get started though, we want the board, our whole board of directors to turn off their video, so all we really are going to see are the panelists and yourself.
Okay.
So if the folks right now on the screen from the Strangers No Longer board can turn them off, that'd be great. Thank you.
We'll get you back. We'll get you back on soon. All right. A word about Strangers No Longer. We've started and we've been focused on immigrants and parishes and our treatment of immigrants and our ability to respond to immigrants. On the other hand, we know that there's many issues that are tied to that. So we don't want to limit this panel to immigration or immigrants. But we do want to, that'll be part of the discussion, I'm sure. But we want to hear from the elected officials and Oscar Chacon, other issues that you care about, Senator and Congresswoman. So please, this is your time. We're so happy, thrilled that you're with us. The first question there was, I'm going to start with Oscar Chacon. And the question and we'll give each of you will have 4 minutes to answer this question. If we're disciplined enough, we'll have time at the end for feedback and other questions from the participants. But this will be a question for Oscar and to Senator Bullock and Congresswoman Dingell. As you review the results of the national elections, what opportunities and challenges do you see for your work? And what are your priorities going forward? Oscar, if you could start us off, and you have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Bill. I'm very grateful for this invitation and very grateful this morning to be joining you together with Senator Marshall Bullock as well as Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. I have to say, Congresswoman, if you are connected, that I appreciate it very much. Your appearance in the show, The Circus, about a week ago or so. I found it very moving. And so I'm, again, grateful to be also here with you. Bill, as I have been reflecting upon the electoral result, I see opportunities, most definitely, opportunities for the country to really seize, the moment we are in, to try to drive the nation into a dynamic of reconciliation, but I don't believe that that reconciliation is just an emotional thing. I mean, I think it's reconciliation based on the recognition of what are legitimate complaints that people have had over the past few decades. And I see as a challenge the danger of not really reading the signals that the electorate is sending us. When I see how divided the country is, the fact that more than 70 million people voted for Donald Trump. It also concerns me greatly because I see it as a huge challenge because, I've lived in the US for nearly 40 years. And I remain convinced that the vast majority of citizens, vast majority of people in the United States of America are people of good faith. I do not believe that the people who voted for Donald Trump are all of them irreparable racists. I mean, I believe that people have legitimate concerns, and to the extent that this opportunity is seized properly, and the complaints and um, reasons that have led so many people to believe in what I consider essentially a false prophet, to be nice, in the person of Donald Trump. I believe that we have a great opportunity to really begin something that should have begun much earlier, but it is not too late. And I really feel that from my perspective, the priorities that we want to advance going forward essentially our education, to try to get everyone, including immigrant communities, to understand what has been the compounded effect of economic inequality, the compounded effect of racism in the form of white supremacy in our country. But I believe that these are messages that go way beyond immigrant communities. I also see, and with this I'd like to end, I see great opportunity to revive the commitment in building democracy, not just in terms of elections, and clearly this election is a record breaking in terms of voter participation, but I really want to see this moment as an opportunity to really get people committed to practicing democracy on a daily basis, which is something I believe we really need to do if we are to take the country back into a path that is simply better for all of us and that allow us to be partners in building a better union for everybody. You're muted, Bill.
You're muted, Bill.
I'm sorry. Oscar, thank you very much. And Strangers No Longer is part of a network that Oscar and others have put together, United States, Mexico, Central America, grassroots organizations across that region. So thank you. Congresswoman Dingell, could you unmute yourself? And then you may already, Congresswoman, recognize some of the nuns who taught you in grade school or high school, or at least you know their initials after their names. So the I-Chans and the Sisters of Mercy. But anyway, Congresswoman Dingell, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill, for that. Oscar, it's great to be with you, and I always love being with Marshall's my brother, and many things. We get in trouble together, but as John Lewis would say, good trouble. I want to build a minute on what Oscar said, and then actually also talk about what the election meant. I have said to many people that we need to not be judgmental about this election. We need to, by the way, be very alert. I am someone who will not feel comfortable in Michigan until everybody has to have their vote counted. We need to make sure that every vote is counted. But I do believe our democracy is still under threat. I think there are those that seek to, I think everybody's vote needs to be counted, and it needs to be done safely and effectively. But I believe that there are those that are trying to undermine people's confidence in the integrity of this election. I believe there are those that are trying not to count every vote and to draw this out in the courts with hopes that they can get it to the state legislature where Marshall does not have the majority. And I have been asked to behave. Have a desire to make a little good trouble. And so I've been talking to a number of the groups in Washington today. There is a number of groups coming together to just say, protect our democracy. So even as we have this discussion, I'm not 100% sanguine that we're done yet. And I may come back to you in the next few days and say, we've really got to make our voices heard. But I ask people not to be judgmental, because I know a lot of people who live downriver, who live where some of you are located, who are union workers, who hate the way that Donald Trump bullies. They hate his rhetoric. They don't like his language, but they think Democrats don't care about them. They think Democrats look down their nose. And we have to really, I think, we have allowed ourselves to be pitted against each other with fear and hatred these last 4 years. And we really have to all look inside ourselves. How did this country become so divided? And how, especially as this group, Strangers No Longer, we all are members of faith, say, how do we bring us back together again and remind ourselves of these common values? And I do talk a lot about the nuns that taught me, because they taught me to understand I was a child of privilege and that I had a responsibility to action. And I think all of us do have a responsibility to action. But what does this election mean, very quickly, to go to the original question? I do believe that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have legitimately won this election. Oscar, thanks for referring to that piece on the circus. I do know Joe Biden. I know Joe Biden well. He came to Michigan and did John's eulogy. And I know who he is. And he's a man of compassion and empathy. And he's who this country needs right now. But having said that, and for all the issues that we all care about, first and foremost, we've got to deal with COVID. I mean, yesterday we had more than 8,500 cases of COVID in Michigan, and it's disproportionately impacting the immigrant community, African Americans, people of color, Asian Americans. Yesterday we had a briefing from NIH that 60% of the people that get COVID are having long haul issues, some very serious with their hearts and their lungs. So we got to get a hold of COVID, and that's got to be the first issue. But I know that Joe Biden, I've talked to him about it personally, one of the first things he's going to do is to repeal the Muslim ban. We're going to stop this separation of children at the borders. And there are a lot of issues we'll talk about more in the next questions. We need comprehensive immigration reform. But I think one of the most important things we're going to see, and we all have to work together to do, is to recapture the soul of America.
Thank you, Congresswoman Dingell. Next, we're going to bring up Senator Marshall Bullock, who actually lives in the Jesu neighborhood. Strangers No Longer and St. Anne's were really the first two parishes that had circles of support that joined. So, Senator Bullock, you're at home. You're at home with your friends. So, a few people have commented on the chats. We are monitoring the chat. So if you have a question, or please feel free to use the chat. Senator Bullock.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me. Hi, Congresswoman. So yeah, we get in good trouble, even though we're not always together. We're like always operating out of the same manual about how we get things done. What I'd say is, first is just to build on what the Congresswoman and Brother Chacon has said, is that we've been pitted against each other. Somewhere along the lines, and maybe it's this microwave social media age, that it's either you're with me or you're against me, instead of understanding what we have more in common with one another than we have differences, and working to stay in the middle. People have went in their prospective corners and just stayed there, and we forced everybody else to choose. You either got to choose this side or that side, when more of us are in the middle, actually. And so that's one thing. So what we learned from the election is that people who are concerned about COVID, their health, social justice, voted for the Democratic candidate. And those folks who are fearful of immigration and the economy and security voted for the Republican candidate. So I'd also, echo the sentiments from Congresswoman about, we need to take a step back, not be judgmental about the results of the election, and work on how do we get back to common ground where we're being civil with one another. We can disagree with each other without being enemies, and move forward in that manner. In Michigan, the country itself, we had the greatest voter turnout in history. So since the 2008 election, it outdid the Obama election, first one. And so we look at those numbers, and we look at where things are going to go and how we move forward. And I don't know if that's part of the next question is, in Michigan, we're going to redraw these lines. And so hopefully the lines have a better parity of, you know, a balance of Republican versus Democrat, and then the best candidate comes out of those areas versus trying to lean towards one area and make it a very small Democratic area and things like that. So I'm hopeful with that the election was ran properly. Everything says that everything was done. This was one of the most secure elections after the fiasco of the Russian involvement in the last election. We put in safeguards all around the country to make sure every vote was counted and that every voice is heard. And it's the one thing, it's one of the few things in our country that everybody knows their vote counts or that the system works. So when people try to put out innuendos and say that there's fraud and tear down the integrity of that, there are some people that just want to see the system burn. We would have anarchy, and so we have to restore that faith by ensuring that everyone's vote was counted and that the results are what they are. And so we got a 46th president, and being the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus chair, our priorities align with a lot of what's going on here in Michigan. COVID, we started a healthcare disparity task force with the COVID virus. And then our priorities just before that happened was healthcare disparities, education inequities, workforce labor and economic development opportunities, and then criminal justice reform, especially in the height of this era where we've had the George Floyd and the Aubreys and the social injustice that has went on throughout this country. And finally, we've been saying it, but we need our counterparts to not be silent anymore because we need everyone's help in this message.
Thank you, Senator Bullock. A couple of chats that have come through. Just we'll go to our second question, but Father Joe Mulligan, who's a Michigander, but from Nicaragua, reminds people that Pope Francis in his recent encyclical says, seen from the standpoint not only of legitimacy of private property and the rights of its citizens, but also the first principle of common destination of goods, we can then say that each country also belongs to the foreigner, in as much as the territory's goods must not be denied to a needy person coming from elsewhere. Another chat was from Charlie Tazia from Nativity in St. Charles Borromeo. If the Congresswoman knows if the transition team has a systematic plan for reunification of families. Let me go to the next question though. Oscar, why don't you kick it off? We recognize that we are a very divided country, state, and community. Maybe you've already answered this a little bit, Oscar, but what do you think the Democratic Party can do to help you work for the common good? Oscar?
Thank you, Bill. Well, let me first say that I've been for a little more than 40 years an advocate, an organizer, an activist, a troublemaker on matters of economic justice, racial justice, and basically the things that people care about in as far as having a shot at living a decent way of life for themselves and their families. And in this respect, you may be surprised for me to say this. I mean, I, of course, would wish that the country find the wisdom and the courage to actually fix once and for all everything that is broken about our U.S. immigration policy. But let me say this. I would really hope that in doing justice to the case of immigrants and in doing justice to the case of my African American brothers and sisters, and in doing justice to people abroad, people who have come to be so deeply connected to the United States, I would really hope that the Democratic Party really seizes this moment to address all these issues, but from a broader recognition of everything that has changed over the last 40 years and that has brought us to the point of division that we are facing today. And to me, that basically means coming to grips with the fact that economic inequality that has been so profoundly damaging to American households across the board. I mean, when I read that back in 1970, one income earner in a household was enough, not only to put food on the table, but to basically get by with a comfortable way of life, understanding that there were inequalities already present back then. And then I see today, to me, that is the core issue that needs to be the broader framework to try to tackle everything else that needs to be tackled. But in my view, if we fail to take this opportunity, if the Democratic Party coming into the presidency next year, and I surely hope that that's going to be what happens next January, I think it would be a wasted opportunity and a huge danger to go back to a point of division in 2022 and even more in 2024. So I would really hope that the kind of agenda that it is advanced, it is an agenda that does not put us even more so in this pathway where we are pitted one against the other, but where we have a much broader perspective, a much more comprehensive set of proposals that address the very issues that have led so many people to believe, as I said before, in what I consider essentially a false prophet, to put it in nice words. So for me, that is what I would hope that the next administration does, not only in the next 4 years, but going forward, because it's going to take a while to get the country back to its best moments. And I, again, hope that the Democratic Party has the wisdom and the courage to lead us that way.
Thank you, Oscar. Congresswoman, I've seen you speak to largely Catholic audiences, and your own sort of passion for the common good. What do you think the Democratic Party can do to help you work towards that? And Congresswoman?
Thanks, Bill. Oscar, your words are very important in what you just said. I am somebody, I actually, again, will tell you that that's why I think Joe Biden is the right person at the right time, because he is somebody that is seasoned. He understands the importance of reaching across the aisle, working with everybody, building coalitions that actually address issues. I have found myself actually thinking about the common good more in this past year as we've been dealing with COVID and the individual rights versus the common good. And as we're looking at the devastating impact of COVID, both in the spring and we're looking at it again now. I mean, our numbers now, quite frankly, are worse than they were in the spring. And we anticipated in the spring hospital numbers that we are now seeing here in the state. We need to be really concerned that our intensive care beds are getting full, our hospitals are at maximum, are becoming full, and our nurses and our doctors are really fatigued. They're tired. They're mentally exhausted, and we got to support each other. So that's, I mean, I talk about the common good more than I ever have, because what is our responsibility as part of that common good? And how masks have become political is just absolutely beyond me. We have so much scientific evidence that wearing your mask helps you and other people and saves lives. But then I'll go back to maybe the bigger question that we started on with what Oscar was saying. And what's happening in political institutions is happening in institutions around the country. And I say that social media was a tool that was started to bring us together. And I think it's done more to divide us than anything has in this country. We feel like we have permission to be bullies, to say unkind words, to be not civil. And that's what we're seeing in our society. We don't believe we have to respect each other. We say things that are just absolutely unacceptable. And we don't know how to disagree agreeably. We don't, I don't know everything. Everyone on this call, every person I meet has had different experiences than I have. We learn from each other's perspectives and experiences, and we keep growing. One of John Dingell's favorite sayings, which Marshall hears me say all the time, is God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. and we need to listen more and talk less. And I think that this change in presidency, his leadership, is going to bring the most diverse cabinet government that we have ever seen in the history of this country. But I think even more importantly, Joe Biden is going to bring compassion and empathy and ability to pull people together and to listen to each other, to not demonize each other. As he said the night that it was officially announced, it's time to stop the demonization of each other.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Bullock, same question. What can the Democratic Party do to help you work for the common good? Senator?
I echo the same sentiments. It's time for a healing. And so, again, we need to find what we have more in common and quit cannibalizing each other. I said it earlier about the social media. Social media has destroyed social interaction and compassion and civil behavior. And it's become so rampant that we as Democrats, we need to take this opportunity to learn. We have to look at the tea leaves in the messaging, you know, not take this stuff personal, to take a step back. As Congresswoman said, don't be judgmental, and find out what really brings us together and work on those things. So there's always three tiers to things, right? There's the fruit on the ground, which should be easy. Then there's the low-hanging fruit, but all low-hanging fruit doesn't mean you can get it by yourself. I might have to put you on my shoulders, Bill, to get that fruit. And then there are fruit, the good fruit that looks really, really, really good and sweet and juicy. It's out on some thin branch, way out on the edge. We gotta, that takes a harder lift to get to. But in the meantime, we could have got all the fruit off the ground and fed the village instead of trying to get that one piece of fruit and falling over and over and over again. So I think we need to figure out what it is that makes our communities tick. And everything is different in every community, but there's a lot of common ground.
Well, Senator, let me ask a question. Let me just, I know that the next question gets into this here about when you look at a group like us, we're all over Southeast Michigan. There's people from Lansing here too, but all over Southeast Michigan, mostly in Catholic churches, not all, but and sometimes in communities and neighborhoods that are pretty white, pretty, you know, we live in a segregated area, but these are the allies that have rounded up around immigration. But speaking as a member, as the chair of the Black Caucus of the legislature, what would you say to us? Where should we be listening? Where should we be listening to you? Where do you want us? Where would you like us to pay attention to you looking forward?
Well, first, listening is the first part, but second, your name, strangers no longer. You have to be there all the time. You can't just show up when the crisis hits. We need friends all the time. You know, people like to give out turkeys on Thanksgiving, but people are starving in February. So we should be passing out food in February also. You know, just the one time it looks good. It's a great, you know, photo op and things like that. But I've designed, we designed a program where we feed people constantly versus just on the holiday. Because the rest of the year they're struggling, but it looks good, makes people feel good. But we have to be around each other more often. We have to be there. And I think a lot of the grassroots organizations and you guys were there, like knocking on doors for the election, because we got people out. Immigration was a big issue. And because if you're there and you're friendly and you gain the trust of the community, then they're more apt to come out and talk and be willing to listen to what you have to say. So we probably need to have more meetings where groups like yours comes to meet with the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, meets with the Detroit Caucus about how we work.
There was actually a question, a chat from one of the high school teachers at Crystal Ray, Jim Dwyer, asking, what does it mean to be a friend more of the time or all the time? So you're making some suggestions. Go ahead.
For me, is this more of the time, all the time? You know, again, it's all, sometimes us politicians get accused we only come out during election. But as Congresswoman Dingell will tell you, she's out all the time, but we can't be everywhere all the time. And so we're running rampant. We're around, but we're trying to be at your community meeting. Like we're doing this. Anytime you can call on me and I'm available, I'm gonna be there for you. So, but we have to establish what that friendship is. I mean, sometimes you have to have a conversation about what each other needs are, right? And so if we can get you in front of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, because I'm the chairman, but it's a voice of right now 28 people. So let's have that conversation.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to, thanks a lot, Senator.
And I gotta disappear. I appreciate you guys. I thank you for having me. It's wonderful seeing you, Congresswoman Dingell, and nice meeting you, Brother Chacon. And good luck.
We know you have an induction for your new members of the Black Caucus. So
Yes. Yeah,
thank you for joining.
members.
And we'll have to take you up on your offer.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Congresswoman, can you pick it up from where Senator left off? A lot of times people are telling you what they want. Well, here's your opportunity to give us some guidance. What do you suggest for us as a grassroots organization?
See, I think you need to use your communities to talk to people about the importance of action, about the importance of engaging, the importance, I looked at some of the chat comments, and there are organizations within our faith that are very, I'm going to be really honest, it's Saturday morning or there's so many things going on. The issue that I find the most difficult as a Catholic woman is the question of life. And I believe it's an individual decision. I'm someone who wanted to have a child so badly, and it wasn't meant to be. God didn't want it to be. But there are also, when we look at the values that we've all been raised with, when we, are taught Psalm 23, when was I hungry? When was I sick? When what? We need to help policymakers, but we need to, all of the communities in which we're located, that membership in it means we need to practice these values every single day. And that what those values mean in everyday life. And that there are people that are hungry and sick and don't have clothing and don't have jobs. And that we need to be advocates for them, and to make your voices heard and to expand. Matthew 24, I'm sorry. I have it. I know it's Matthew 24, I'm just tired.
One of your IHM former teachers.
I know, but I did listen. I knew it was Matthew 20 something. But I think what we have to do is to get your communities that you're engaged in to understand that's part of who we are, and that people need to hear that perspective. Policymakers need to hear that perspective, and they need to hear it more. I get incredible hate notes, believe it or not, on many different subjects. I mean, the immigration, people are fearful on the subject of immigration. You all are strangers no more. It's one of the areas that you're working on and helping people. And Cindy Garcia has become one of my dearest friends. And people don't even understand the story. They don't understand the human side to so many parts of this story. We have to expand ourselves at that grassroots level, get people to talk about our values and to see what is really at stake, that these are human lives, human people, human communities. And we need to expand the voices that are taking action, personalizing and humanizing all of these situations so that we can bring empathy and compassion and action that matters ultimately on a number of critical policy issues we all care about.
One of the chats, Congresswoman, came in from one of the deacons on the phone who said it was a reminder that, let me pull it up here, that we need to stress that right to life or pro-life is incomplete when divorced from human rights. And then a number of my friends, frankly, over the since the election have been saying, let's follow Pope Francis's advice and have dialogue leading to a solution. I mean, this stalemate between around the right to life and then, human rights. Let's have some real dialogue about that. Does that make sense to you? I mean, do you see
It
that
absolutely
happen?
does. I mean, one of the most, I said to Nancy, let me just give you one little example. When COVID started, Rashida and I are, I mean, I know we look like an unlikely odd couple, but we are the odd couple. We are close friends. We talk almost every morning, every night. And she started talking about the water issue in Detroit. And I said, Rashida, we got to go take that on. I mean, she had been taking it on, but I thought about it in a different way. So I won't even give you some of my tactics because I don't want everybody to know some of the things I did. But then I went back to Washington in the leadership meeting, said to Nancy, and Nancy's a Catholic woman too. Nancy, we are telling people that the most important thing that they can do to prevent COVID is to wash their hands. And yet there are thousands of people across this country that don't have access to running water or to clean water. Water is a human right. I mean, and by the way, Nancy agreed with us. Rashida and I got it included in the first care package. If we ever get another package done in COVID, it will be in there. And water is a human right, is something we're fighting for every day. That to me is just so very basic that those are the kinds of things that we all should be shining lights on and having people think about.
Congresswoman, I'm going to let Oscar speak here for a minute, but just one of our leaders on one of our own Zoom calls here. Now, we're a nonprofit, 501c3, but one of our leaders said that the whole refusal to get funds into families around this COVID thing, an emergency package, what that does is that for the hundreds of thousands of women who are pregnant, it really makes, it really just adds to the pressure of the prenatal care, the postnatal. If there's no money, now of course that's not the only consideration, but they want to reduce abortions. Let's get this COVID. That's what she said.
She's correct.
Oscar, want to turn the microphone over to you here, Oscar?
I'm here.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the reasons that I have been so pleased with the partnership between Alianza Americas and Strangers No Longer is because you are a very important bridge that allows for conversations to take place on matters that are so important and very often so little known in the US that I consider is crucial for us to do far more of. And I am the first to recognize that COVID-19 has really come in the way of a lot of the work that you guys have been doing in Michigan, particularly what I describe essentially as meaningful social interaction kind of work. The possibility to actually engage in much more frequent conversations about difficult issues, including the difficult issues that explain why is it that so many people from Mexico, Central American countries have been coming to the US over the past 4 decades. I think that you are in a great position to continue to do that work. I'm so happy to see that you are already innovating in the use of Zoom to be able to precisely advance that outreach work. It will never be the same as doing it in person, but I think it is an important component of the work that you do. And I really believe that what will probably need to change, and we are happy to help and work with you about it, is how we actually talk, about these difficult issues of immigration, immigrants in our country, in the context of the larger issues that have been affecting the nation. And to me, I go back again to say, economic inequality and its impacts, the changing demographics are two of the greatest changes that have been occurring, and we have not been really tackling them in the best of ways, which makes possible then for unscrupulous politicians to use those issues to divide us. And I believe we cannot afford to continue to do that. And the last thing I will say, I mean, is that in my view, strangers no longer has been so important as of the end of last year. I mean, bringing tours into the US, bringing people from Central America and Mexico to listen to them, to hear their own stories. And I believe that that is something that we just need to do more of in any way we can. And I like to just end by saying that these past few days, immediately after the elections, we have been overwhelmed with the realities of Storm Eta in Central America. Most people in the US still don't know how devastating that particular storm has been, especially in the Atlantic coast in Nicaragua, in Honduras, and very much in the inlands in Guatemala. And sadly, the communities most affected are Afro-Central Americans, indigenous Central Americans. And again, I mean, we are now trying to run as fast as we can to mount a campaign to begin education, but also the fundraising support to be able to provide some rays of hope to communities that are already so devastated and probably about to face a new storm in those three countries. So again, I mean, I want to just thank you for all the work that you do, and to tell you again that we are very happy, proud of our partnership.
We still have 8 minutes here. I think everybody you should know that when the panel is over, we're going to have a minute or two Chairman Inslee is going to ask us, where have you been pushed? Where have you been challenged? Individually, not the speakers, but us here in Michigan. Where have we been challenged by the speakers in the panel? Two questions that came through, and I'll turn over to you, Congresswoman. Two questions. One is, what steps are being taken in the upcoming year to enact legislation to protect DACA recipients? And what can community organizations do to assist you? That was one. And then the second, from a high school teacher, how can we make sure that our nation's foreign policy won't exacerbate these crises in South and Central America that are enabling the extreme violence in that region? Congresswoman, those are big questions, but please help us out.
Well, let me start with DACA. I think that everybody, I would ask you all to, grassroots is really connecting with people that you know at a very grassroots level, and asking every person you know to write their legislators and tell them that with this president, it's really important to reinstate DACA. I don't know, I think that this is hopeful about what I'm about to share. We're having, you know, you've read about it in the paper, we're all, even within the Democratic caucus, we're having a lot of intense discussions. And I am fighting very hard inside the Progressive Caucus that while there's nobody who feels stronger than for Medicare for all than myself, my father-in-law was the first person to ever introduce it in the 1940s, and the Dingle family's been fighting for that ever since. But that as we develop the agenda for this next cycle, we need to do issues that people talk about at the dinner table. That it's but I mean, and it's quite frankly what so many of you are hearing about, from lowering the cost of prescription drugs to broadband access, both in urban and rural areas, affordable housing, affordable college, criminal justice reform, a number of these issues that quite frankly weren't being included in their first draft. And so I had 8 issues, but one of them was DACA. So I was talking to AOC this week, who said to me, Debbie, the reason DACA is not there, she agreed with some of the other things I said, is because it's become a mainstream issue. Everybody agrees we've got to do it. Now, I'm still arguing that we need to keep it in our agenda, but if that's true, then I pray that this is one of the very first things, besides repealing the Muslim travel ban, that Joe Biden will do in an executive order. But continuing to push on that really, really matters. Obviously, we all care about what's going to happen in international relations, and Joe Biden's got a lot of work to restore our reputation, our alliances, and the work that we've done. But what you just talked about is very important, and hopefully he's going to pick people to lead in those areas. They're going to share that concern, and then we in Congress and you at the very local level have got to, I mean, I agree with almost every thing that you all want us to do, but you do have colleagues in other parishes and congressional districts, not only across Michigan, but across the country, that you need to get engaged and involved and to share those concerns and the desire for action.
Thank you. Now I know I'm getting challenged by this conversation. I hope all 77 people on the call here are thinking about these things. Oscar, I'm going to give you, I think we got a few more minutes, 4 more minutes. I'll give you your last comments, and then Congresswoman Dingles. But before you start, I want to read from Sister Nancy Jamrose. She says to both of you and to Senator, your words and witness of working for the common good give hope and impetus to keep on taking the next step in our parishes and schools, and see each day as an opportunity to begin again, keep working, to listen more, talk less, act daily. God bless you all 3 of you. Oscar, last word.
Well, I just again want to thank both Senator Bullock as well as Congresswoman Dingell for this opportunity to be in their company this morning. And most of all, I want to thank each of the members, volunteers, friends of Strangers No Longer, because I believe that the work you've done is absolutely necessary. And we look forward to figure out how we can better improve our partnership with you, be a resource to whatever extent we can, so that the work that you've been doing continues and that we do it in even more effective ways. I would just remind everybody that in addition to the DACA kids, the DACA recipients who most people in the US now at least have heard about, there are about 400,000 people who have been living in this country with authorization. Temporary protected status was granted to them long ago, and they also are very much in a dangerous situation as I speak to you today. So I believe that that is another issue that we need to critically look at and figure out ways in which that can be solved. But the very last thing I will say is, our country is indeed divided. Our country is indeed in trouble. And I don't believe that the electoral result altogether, not just the presidential election, but the congressional side of the election, the state legislatures side of the election, make us aware that there is so much more to do. And I believe that how we do, our work for justice over the next few years will be crucial to ensure that we do not come back to the divisive politics that the Trump administration has so effectively advanced. And so I look forward to continue to be a partner in the best way we can, not only personally, but on behalf of Alianza Americas. So it's been a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Oscar. Congresswoman, last words, and thank you for being with us, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Bill. Oscar, it's been an honor to be with you, and I love Marshall. He's my brother, but all of you, starting a morning like this, it gives me faith, and you give us hope. I think a lot of people just need hope, and we got to keep supporting each other. There are tough times ahead. That we've been through tough times, but we still have tough times ahead. But if we're there in community and as community, and we all support each other and really work for what matters, fighting for that common good, but also fighting for our democracy and how lucky we are to have it. You all are wonderful. I'm so grateful to be with you. You soothe my soul. And lately I've needed a lot of soothing of my soul. So thank you for making my Saturday morning a special morning.
Well, thank you. And I think it's our prayer that we are balm, as they say, the balm of Gilead, balm for each other. So thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Oscar. And I'm going to turn it over now to our chairperson, Rosemary Inslee. Rosemary?
Hi, I'm going to put my video back on. So I want to thank Congresswoman Dingell and Oscar Chacon very much for being with us, as well as Senator Bullock. You have given us direction. You have given us hope that our people who are speaking and acting in the public forum are in touch with what is near and dear to our hearts, both as spiritual people and as citizens in this country. So you also give us hope. I want to invite you on behalf of Strangers No Longer to, as specific issues come up, to invite us to be part of that, as we will call on you as things come to our minds. You have challenged us this morning. You've encouraged us. Thank you very much. So I'd like now for everyone that's on with us this morning to think for a moment about how you've been challenged to push towards the common good. Just let come up what is there for you. And then I'm going to give us like a minute to just sit with that quietly. And then I'm going to ask for some response.
Rose, just to remind the people whose faces are not here, use your chat.
Oh, yes,
We're recording, so use your chat whether your face is on or not.
All right, thanks, Bill. Yes. So for those whose faces I can see, which is our board and circle leader members, as well as our panelists, I'd like you to unmute yourselves. And if a response has come to you, I invite you to let us know what that response is. And then I will also check the chats for other people's responses. So if I can see hands. Bill.
I'm bursting at the seams here during the panel. I was starting to shake because I realized over the years I've just said, don't bother calling the congressperson. Everybody does that. Don't bother with, I mean, to myself, I've said this. But hearing Congresswoman Dingell talk about the hate mail that comes in makes me, I want to change my attitude.
Good. And I have to say that I get sometimes overwhelmed with with the what can I do as one person piece. And what I've learned in my association with Strangers No Longer is that my efforts get multiplied just by invitation. And so you've challenged me to believe in that more deeply and to act on that more frequently. Somebody else had their hand up.
Gary Duquette.
Gary, thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I applaud all the participants today. It's inspirational what they've said, what everyone has said. And just a simple thought that came to my mind is that when we're in one-on-one conversations with anyone, that we practice asking open-ended questions, things that are non-confrontational, and give us the opportunity to listen to the other person. So something, just an example, to say to someone who supported Trump, what do you think the Trump administration is or was doing right? And listen, as Congresswoman Dingell suggested, we have 2 ears and keep the mouth closed for a while. And then on a community level, we also have to look for ways to reach out to our community. I'm not sure what that is yet, but in any case, I applaud all the members today.
Thank you, Gary, very much. Pat Watanabe.
I'm so glad that we had the chance to meet this morning. And the word judgmental certainly stood out to me because I know I am. And how do I fight that tendency in me so that I can reach people more? On one little topic, and I know Cynthia Mallow is on this call from St. Michael's, and so Cynthia and I will be at the Strangers No Longer meeting Tuesday. We've been trying to find ways to reach people through columns in the paper. Our pastor is not real comfortable speaking out on this issue, but we have found that the deacon probably will be, and they have a good working relationship. And because the deacon was an immigrant himself from Germany, we are asking him to start out on a very neutral tone, that he's going to write the first article on what it was for him to be an immigrant. And we're then going to follow through on that. I will then write an article about my experiences of helping one undocumented immigrant on her way to wanting to become a citizen. So it is little steps. And I think Rosemary Schultz sent an article to many of us saying that don't think of yourself as that one wave crashing on the beach. You're part of the ocean. Together is where we have the power. And so that's several challenges that I'm thinking of this morning, but you've given me great ideas, and I thank you all for that.
Thanks very much, Pat. Thank you. Jim Dwyer.
Hi, Jim Dwyer here from Detroit Cristo Rey High School. One thing that I've been really struggling with this morning is, like Pat said, that judgmental piece. Like I feel like I try to do a good job of listening and not like judging folks for voting for Trump or having whatever position, but I do feel judgmental about it sometimes. But then I also feel that it does feel like one side's right and one side's wrong a lot of the time on a lot of these issues. And so I have a hard time getting to a place where I can empathize not just with people that are suffering, but people that are also terrified of the people that are suffering. And so like that's something that I need to work on. But I also get really, I think we really need to make sure that we do more outreach and listening to ordinary people. I get really frustrated when I hear about talks about bipartisanship in like the legislature, because I mean, I don't think that it gets us the results that we need as ordinary people. And I'm very skeptical of the fact that Republicans are going to reach across the aisle back, and whether it's just going to be Democrats caving into what Republicans want. And I know that we have to build coalition, and I think it's really important that we build coalition with ordinary people and start from the ground up. And I think that we have to do a more intentional job of building coalition with people that don't think like us.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, that's definitely our challenge, isn't it? To build those kind of coalitions. Sister Rebecca, I see your hand up.
I was so touched by all the speakers this morning, and a couple of things really struck me. Senator Bullock said, we're one-time people, you know, like Christmas, we feed the hungry, but we forget about the hungry the rest of the year. I think it was the representative, Mr. Chacon, who said, you know, we have all these disasters in Central America with the hurricanes and the flooding and so forth. And all those millions of people, you know, that we hear about them today. Next week, we don't hear about them anymore on social media or on the TV. And these are the people that have, you know, ongoing suffering, you know. And so I think for me today, the challenge that I take for myself is that, you know, we do what we can do, but it's an ongoing thing. You know, it's something that those floods and those hurricanes, those people will be years trying to rebuild what lives they can rebuild. And I think the whole thing too applies to like the water shortage that Senator Dingell referred to, you know, that the water shortage, do we hear about it anymore? No, you know, but these are the same people that cannot address, you know, the COVID things that are put before us for safety. So, you know, I think the challenge for me is that we have to remember the ongoing suffering.
Thanks, Sister Rebecca. Yes, I think that's that every day, the being there every day is an important piece.
Rose,
Whose
just
face
a
I can
quick,
see.
just
Go
a
ahead.
reminder that in terms of what to do, right after this, right when you're finished here, we're going to move into that whole question of contacting your state representative about the driver's license. So I just encourage circle leaders, board leaders, hang in there, and we'll take care of that next after your, I'm sorry, Rose. So back to you.
Oh, all right, gotcha. Yes. I'm just checking the chats here. But first I'm going to go back to go to Irma, and you have to unmute yourself, Irma. Thank you. Go ahead, Irma.
Hi, everybody. I think a couple of things really struck me. Well, a lot of things struck me from our speakers. And one of them was what Oscar said about, you know, it was such a surprise to me, and I know to many of us, that so many people voted for Trump. And he said, well, they aren't, you know, the majority, maybe a lot of the people aren't racist, and maybe the majority of people are people of goodwill. And so my challenge to myself is, you know, when we do have interactions with other people, or we're trying to bring up an issue that we are concerned about, to come from it, to go to it through the focus of our common values and you know, things that we want to do for the common good, as opposed to, you know, us versus them, or, you know, why do you think this way and why do you think that way? Approaching those things, you know, from our common values, you know, our common values, because if you approach it that way, I mean, most people do not want to see people hungry or in need or being attacked for their racial, or because of the race or whatever purpose. And so when we are presenting our ideas or issues or whatever, to approach them from that point of view of the common good and of our common values.
Yes. That we truly have more in common than we often see on the surface. Thank you, Irma. Kathleen Rogers, did you have something you wanted to say?
I wanted to just ask, first of all, to thank all of the people on the panel. I believe everybody has left now, but I wanted to ask what they recommend is the best way to communicate with their legislators. phone calls, letters, emails. I do emails frequently, but I've made a personal commitment to myself to make it part of my day, just like prayer and, staying in touch with friends, is working on communicating to my state and federal legislators on the issues that are top of mind for me. And I think I like the idea that several people have mentioned using this in conversation with those we know. Rosemary, you talked about the idea of inviting others to get involved in some way. I'm working with Vote Forward. I know a number of people in the group probably are, regarding the Georgia Senate race it's coming up very quickly, the January 5th. So my goal is to get, let's say, half a dozen of my friends to get involved as well, because we have a very short timeline, and these are really outstanding candidates, and it would be wonderful if they could be elected in Georgia. So just little steps, baby steps of things that we can do to change the dynamics and have people that have, the common good at heart. I loved that idea of the common good. So thank you for this wonderful panel.
Kathleen,
Thank you.
just
Yes.
a quick, Brian McMurray is the staff person from Congresswoman Dingell's office. Brian's been with us on the phone here. I don't know if he's still on, but that's a question of, what's the best way to communicate? That's something that maybe we can get, if Brian's not with us anymore. But
Yeah,
we
yeah.
He's here.
Oh, he's
still
here. Oh, great, Brian. Love to hear.
Yeah, I think, as you're saying that it's, really important to reach out. I think the most effective way, from our standpoint, I mean, we get letters, we get emails, we get phone calls. At our office, we answer them all, the same. I have heard over the years that writing a letter is the best way, but just because it's more personal and it seems like it took more time to do. But from our office, standpoint, any of those, any issue, any constituent that reaches out, whether it's by letter, phone, or email, we treat the same way, which is we, show it to Congresswoman Dingell. We come up with a response for that. Definitely very important. I think that's one of the ways that, especially in some of these areas where people aren't at, you might have a member that's not as active in the community as, say, Congresswoman Dingell, where it's a good opportunity for constituents to get their voices heard to that person, if they don't see them out in the community as often.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I'd like to go now to some of the chat. Mary Kovari in the chat relates to kind of the struggle part of this in a couple of her chats. And in the second one, she says, what if reaching out means reaching out to people who we see as racist or don't get it, or those that are that don't seem to see what we see, and that's hard. How do we work at this? Sometimes I feel like we are in danger of preaching to the choir. Maybe we reach out to our own parishioners, reach out to family members and figuring it out there first. I don't know, but I think struggling with that, how do I approach somebody who feels very differently than me? How do we find what's common to us? And I think that is the challenge in front of us. Jim Dwyer says, important to think about that God didn't just tell us to be good neighbors. God became one of our neighbors in the form of Jesus. need to foster real relationships to build our coalition. Um, So I see a couple of other posts about the upcoming Georgia election. So that sounds like that's one issue that's going to be pivotal and that we can get involved in. So I want to thank all of you for your responses today to the panelists and to what we're trying to talk about. So I want to turn this over now again to Bill O'Brien, who is going to tell us a bit more about a specific issue, that of the driver's license in Michigan.
Thanks. I also was thinking, looking, during this thing that I've been challenged. I was challenged pretty heavily yesterday and the last couple of days to think about diversity in Strangers No Longer. I mean, we started as a Catholic group, no problem, but we should be feeling somewhat tense about making sure that we have diversity. And I mean, Molly Peterson, she's pretty young, not that young, but to reach out and really reach out to young people's groups, whether they go to our churches or not. Same thing with African American. We have some Latino leadership, but to push ourselves, and of course to rebuild our educational efforts in the parish. That's what Dingo was saying. Was we've got people in our parishes that and to try to figure out. All right, moving along. Rich and Kathy, could you share the PowerPoint here? I've been on the phone with some of you over the last couple of days, trying, to really follow through with our effort, the board decision to go ahead and have all our circles schedule meetings with their state rep. So I'm going to fly through this little PowerPoint here. And Nancy, Amy Kettner and Nancy, you should get ready to weigh in. Nancy is one of the women in our Strangers No Longer Circle of Support. It's immigrant women. They call it Women Under the Protection of God. So Nancy is going to weigh in a little bit on this driver's license thing. Rich, go ahead. Strangers No Longer. So what is this Michigan Driver's License Initiative? Well, it's legislation that's been repeatedly, like over 8 years, to allow immigrants to apply for a driver's license. Go ahead, Rich. And it's going to be introduced again this year. Go ahead. By a couple of senators and a couple of state reps. But we want to ask your state representative, we want you to ask your state rep to consider co-sponsoring the legislation. They don't have to take the lead, but they at least co-sponsor. Go ahead, Rich. And this bill would, when it comes in, this bill would allow any person who meets age requirements and can prove residency, obtain a state ID card, or apply for a driver's license, including immigrants living in Michigan without legal permission. This was always allowed until 2008. Okay, next. Why is it important? Human dignity. Now we did a training back in September. So we've got a great longer training, but improved public safety, having people that are trained with a driver's license on the roads rather than somebody who just gets behind the wheel. A lot of agricultural benefits to the state of Michigan if we were to pass this thing. The Michigan Farm Bureau wants to pass it. Improves community safety. A lot of the police departments around the state want this to happen because on a simple thing, when somebody dies and they don't have ID, the police department spends days trying to find out who the person is. A driver's license would take care of that pretty quickly. Go ahead. And there's a lot of economic benefits to the state of Michigan, which are well documented, and we can send you some if you need them. Go ahead, Rich. Michigan Catholic Conference, the bishops. For 8 years, driver's licenses for immigrants has been a Michigan Catholic Conference campaign. We heard that back in October from Paul Stankiewicz at the MCC. Go ahead, Rich. Now, what we're asking is for you to do a 30 to 40-minute Zoom conversation with a person who has power. Go ahead. That would be your state representative. So why? So that you can build the relationship between, a lot of state representatives don't know who you are. And here we are, the church or the parish. Well, they may know that you're there, but do they really have the relationship with yourself, with your pastor, with your circle? Go ahead. And how do you do that? Well, in part, you discover what he or she cares about. What are her goals for the year? What's her family think about her being a state rep? What's her background? How'd she get into it? Go ahead. And letting him or her know what you care about. Go ahead. So we are asking that you invite your circle, invite your pastor, invite parishioners. This isn't all about immigration. This is about your parish and your circle, letting people ask the state rep a question. And many of Jim Dwyer at Cristo Rey is trying to get his high school students. He's organizing a Zoom meeting with his state rep with the high school students. It'll be a great introduction to reality. And then we'd ask during the conversation if you'd ask the state rep if he or she would consider co-sponsoring the legislation on driver's license, which is a campaign of the Michigan Catholic Conference. Okay, next. The rest of those 30, 40 minutes is getting to know your state rep, letting him get to know your circle, your pastor. Okay, next. Now, Amy and Nancy, are you there? Nancy is one of the moms from our Circle of Support out in Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County. Nancy, are you there? Nancy?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Rich, take down the Rich, you can remove the, yeah. Nancy, let's get you, go ahead. And I believe that Amy's going to translate, is that true?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, Nancy, give you a couple of minutes here.
Okay. Adelante, Nancy. Buenos días a todos. Good morning, everyone. Mi nombre es Nancy y vivo en Ann Arbor desde hace 18 años. My name is Nancy and I've lived in Ann Arbor for 18 years. Hablar sobre las necesidades que tiene la comunidad inmigrante son también mis necesidades. I'm here to talk about the needs of the immigrant community, which are also my needs. El poder obtener una licencia de manejo. The ability to have a driver's license, to obtain a driver's license. Me daría la tranquilidad de transportarme a lugares donde existe la necesidad de ir. Would give me the ability to transport myself to drive to places that I need to go. Con los mismos derechos y obligaciones como cualquier residente o ciudadano. The same rights and obligations as any resident or citizen. Llevar a mis hijos a la escuela, comprar comida, consultas médicas, dentales, farmacia, banco o simplemente un paseo familiar. Such as taking my kids to school, buying food, going to the doctor or the dentist, the bank, or just simply having a family outing together. En el pasado, mi esposo era el único que manejaba. In the past, my husband was the only one who drove. Cuando él enfermó, me vi en la necesidad de aprender a manejar. When he got sick, I saw that I would have to learn to drive. Por cualquier emergencia o ida al hospital. Or in case of whatever emergency or a trip to the hospital. ¿Es traumática la situación de manejar por necesidad? It's traumatic to live, to have the desire or the need to drive. Y al mismo tiempo vivir el constante miedo de ser detenida por no tener una licencia. But at the same time live in this constant fear of being detained because of not being able to have a license. Esta situación me genera estrés y ansiedad. This situation has, for me, generated a lot of stress and anxiety. Mis hijos sufren. That I'm my kids also suffer this same trauma, stress, anxiety.
Pero es un riesgo que corremos diariamente.
It's a risk that we run every day.
La razón número uno por la cual los inmigrantes terminan deportados en Michigan es por infracciones de tránsito.
The number one reason that immigrants end up deported in Michigan is because of traffic violations.
Somos el segundo estado en más deportaciones.
We're the second state with the most deportations.
Y somos el primer estado con el mayor número de violaciones a derechos humanos de los inmigrantes.
And we are the state with the greatest number of violations of human rights of immigrants.
Es indispensable que los inmigrantes
It's essential that immigrants
obtengamos nuestro derecho a manejar
have the right to drive.
y no tener listas nos hace vulnerables a que la policía nos entregue a ICE y ser deportados.
Not having these licenses makes us vulnerable to the police who can turn us into ICE to be deported.
La comunidad inmigrante
The immigrant community
y el movimiento cosecha
and the cosecha movement, the harvest movement,
ha estado varias veces en Lansing
we've been in Lansing various times
demandando licencias.
to demand licenses.
Necesitamos que el presidente del Comité de Transporte, Jack O'Malley,
We need the head of the Transportation Committee, Jack O'Malley,
nos escuche y dé la audiencia a la ley Drive Safe.
to hear us and to have to let the drive safe bills be voted upon.
Si realmente es su intención de apoyar a la comunidad para que esté segura en las calles,
If it's truly your intention to support our community, that we may be safe in the streets,
llamen y tengan conversaciones con sus representantes de su estado.
please have these conversations with your state representatives.
Gracias por su atención.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Un aplauso fuerte.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Nancy, thank you. Amy, thank you. Nancy and Nancy is a member of, she's a member of Strangers No Longer through her circle of support, Women Under the Protection of God, that Sister Martha and Amy are working with. So Nancy, thank you very much. Amy, you too. All right, Rich and Kathy, I'd like you to share the list of the circles there. Share that piece. And while we put this up here, so I don't know if you can, well, people can read it. I hope you can make it bigger if you want to slide it over a little bit if you have to. So what we're asking is, what I'd like to do is go through this list quickly. Thank you, Kathy, that's very good. And basically ask a question. Are you going to try, or will you have a Zoom meeting with your state rep, with a group? By the way, I always say groups are better than individual letters, but so anyway, will you do it? Yes or no? Will you invite your pastor? Some people think they don't have to invite their pastor. Will you invite the pastor? Who in your team, it doesn't have to be the leader. Some people are very busy, but a member of that committee might want to do it. And then what is your number goal? So without any further ado, I'm just going to go through this list, answer the best you can, and Kathy Faba, our communications, or our secretary, is going to take notes either here or on a piece of paper. So Kay, you've already done this. Why don't you give people a little courage, a little inspiration here?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Bill. Yes, I belong to the first parish listed there, Christ Our Light. And because we have been a merged parish, we fall into a number of voting districts. So with my very good partner, Kathleen Rogers, who also lives in Royal Oak, we decided to do number 1 there, to meet with our state rep, Jim Ellison. And we just decided we were going to do it and see if we can figure it out. And 2 more are planned. So what we did was we contacted Jim Ellison's office in Lansing and talked to his scheduler, who helped us set up this meeting. And we were able to do this before the elections, mainly because Jim is a third-term rep and he didn't have a lot of competition. And so he was able to help us facilitate that before the elections. So we set up our Zoom meeting, and then Kathleen and I each reached out to Christ Our Light Parish and then to our friends and neighbors in the Royal Oak area who were pretty busy with the big election concept, you know, what they were going to vote on. So we found it a little challenging, but we found, you know, members of our circle group, as well as neighbors and friends who joined us. Our group was small, but we set up our Zoom. And we had our agenda. Kathleen really worked on we had the agenda, and Kathleen worked on the introduction, really researching what Jim Ellison was all about. So we were greeting him with a little bit of background so that the people were informed there as to, you know, his background and what he had done politically. So we found out from him, first of all, that the driver's license legislation that we were concerned about was about ready to expire. This has been, these bills have been reintroduced a number of times, as Bill O'Brien just said to us, and they expire if they don't hit the floor for debate after a period of time. So he told us these were going to be reintroduced. So it's a great idea, Bill, as you just said, to see if we can get our rep to co-sponsor and to really help with that. And so we met, we had a brief meeting. Our representative was most engaging. He was very knowledgeable on the whole political process, on what he's interested in, and really filled us in on how a bill works and how long it can sit there and how long it takes before it will hit the floor. So actually, citizen participation here is really important. We had a wonderful meeting. It was very friendly and relaxed, and we told him we want him to know that we're an active group, that we're interested in what's going on in our state, and we're a group he could call upon. So it just turned out to be very positive. We've got 2 more to go, and they're even larger groups, one for Birmingham Bloomfield and one for Troy and Clawson.
Okay, so basically it was fun.
It really was very positive, and it gave us this little feeling of power at a time when we felt pretty powerless.
All right. What's your, so your next one is Marie, you're going to do 3, which other parishes don't have to do, but are you going to do one for Marie Manugian?
It's a Marie Manugian, yes, and I have a person who's often, but also from my group, who's offered to partner that with me, and I also have a partner for Troy Clawson. So you've got them listed there, Maureen Field and Eileen Heasley. We've got our basic list of the members of our parish who belong in that voting district, as well as friends and neighbors and other associates. And we haven't even published that full invitation out to the big parish.
Are you going to, all right, now we're going to go through, are you going to invite your pastor, yes or no?
Yes.
And what is your goal for those 2 events? How many people are you going to try to get?
I think, and we have agreed also to welcome St. Regis into our Birmingham Bloomfield group because they don't have a leader right now. So our goal there is possibly close to 20. And for Troy Clawson, Eileen Heasley's quite a go-getter. And so I think we could aim, well, certainly be 15 or 20 there.
Okay. Now, everybody, we're going to go through this, and thank you, Kay, taking the lead on that. So we're just 4 questions. Are you going to do this? Are you going to invite your pastor? Do you have somebody that's going to organize it? And what's your number goal? So to get through this quickly, just be brief. Rose, show us the way, Rose.
All right, so yes, we are inviting Regina Weiss, who is a new legislator. We tried to get her before the election and she wasn't available, so we're going back at it. We are going to invite our pastor, and I'm hoping for 12 to 15 people.
Great, thank you. St. Mary's, thank you, Rose. That's the way to do it. St. Mary's, Amy?
Yes, we will reach out to Yusuf and also potentially Felicia Braybeck. We will invite the pastor. Kim Polka is going to help us organize, and hopefully we'll aim high. Let's do 20.
Okay, great. Thank you, St. Mary's. St. Anne's, Amelia Mata or Irma?
Yes, we are planning to have our Zoom meeting with Representative Tyrone Carter. And yes, we will invite our pastor. And we're hoping, we don't know, but we're hoping around 15 people.
Great. Thank you, St. Anne. Christ the Good Shepherd, I think, I'm not sure who's on, Carol or Sister Becky. Carol?
Yeah, I'm on. And yes, we do plan on having a meeting. I'm in the process of drafting an email. I will invite the pastor to come, and I'm hoping to get maybe 10 to 15 people.
Great. Thank you, Carol. St. Francis of Assisi in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, North Ann Arbor, Jim Russo.
Yes, we'll do all of those. I'm in Felicia's district. She is newly elected. She already supports the initiative. She did that at the county level earlier, and she's agreed to do a Zoom call with us. I'm going to ask Scott Wright. I did ask Scott Wright to take the lead with Ronnie Peterson, since Scott lives in that district. And I haven't figured out yet who I'm going to have take the lead. I'm contacting Yessa.
Okay, what's your goal in terms of numbers? What's your goal in terms of numbers?
6 or 8 in each of the meetings.
Okay. That was Scott Wright for Ronnie Peterson.
Yes.
Okay, Cristo Rey Oscar Castaneda up in Lansing, the capital.
Okay, so we have 5 representatives in our area. It's it's really populated, so we get so many. I want to say, and I'm very pleased to say, that we have a relationship, and I want to enforce the relationship thing with Sarah Anthony, with Julie Brixey, and with Cara Hope. I am very proud, and I hope you get it the right way. I have their cell phone numbers in my phone, so I can call them when I want. Now that takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of putting up with their crap sometimes, because but we are friends, and I think that it makes a big difference. So I'm glad that you guys are calling people. You need to. Sarah Anthony has been to our events and in Cristo Rey at least 5 times. So has been Julie Brixey, and I think that really makes a difference. So they all are Democrats. So they all say yes. Oh, of course, we will support you. You know what? It's too bad that the House is Republican now, so we cannot do nothing about it. I think that they can do more, and we need to push them more. So I am not happy taking the let's wait until we flip the House. I'm saying you have to do something now. Now the last thing I want to say is Graham Filler is the only one who is a Republican. So we want to focus our efforts on him. And we want to find people who lives in close to his house. So when someone comes, we say, I live in your neighborhood, and I know you, and I know when you walk your dog, or something like this. So we already spoke with Sarah Anthony. We already spoke with Julie Brixey. They both offered to sponsor the bill. Angela Whitwer, we just started a relationship because she was running, and we hold forums where she was one of the candidates. So now I also have her phone number, and I'm planning on calling her now and saying, you were asking for support, now we need your support. And even if you are, so I am asking Father Vincent to come with us to the call.
Good.
And because we're gonna focus on filler, I'm planning on having 40 people when we talk to him.
All right, so Kathy got that 40 over there. Okay, the others we'll hear later. Okay, Oscar, thank you, Oscar. You're carrying a lot of water there. Cristo Rey, Jim Dwyer, Cristo Rey High School. This will be interesting. Jim?
Yeah, so we've reached out to Representative Carter, but we haven't been able to get a hold of him or his office. But we're going to continue to try to reach out to his office. We are planning on inviting our administration at the school to be present for that meeting, in addition to the Basilian Father who's at our school, Father Jose del Toro. And as far as the organizer, it's probably going to be both me and Maria Pangori. She's our campus minister. She's one of our attendees on this call. And so as far as a number of people, like I would say maybe 15. It's really hard to tell when we haven't had a chance to like set up a time to meet. And I'm really curious to ask Irma, like, has she been successful in trying to reach Representative Carter's office?
We're just in the beginning phases of the planning, but Monday, probably, I'm going to start asking for him to come.
Okay. And so, Irma, can I send you I'll put my email in the chat. I'd be interested in connecting, and maybe we could collaborate with St. Anne's and in Cristo Rey High School.
Okay.
Since we have the same rep.
Okay.
Cristo Rey is a great place. If you're looking for a place to visit someday, get to Cristo Rey. Jesu, I think I'm going to ask Jackie Fulbright. Jackie?
Good morning. Okay, I have attempted to reach out to Mr. Vandahar. He is a newly elected state rep. I left a voicemail message for him. I'm waiting for him to call me back. I don't know if he's established his office in Lansing yet, so I am going to extend an invitation to the pastor, and I'm looking between 15 to 20 people.
Great, Jackie. That's a great number. My parish and Our Lady of Sorrows. I'm not sure anybody's on the call from Our Lady of Sorrows. I think Susan Horvath was Susan Homet. All right, St. Charles Borromeo, either Linda Cunningham or Charlie Tazia. Linda, are you on, Charlie?
This is Charlie. I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So it's
Yeah.
both. Okay.
Oh, is Linda on as well? Sorry. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a couple people. Linda Cunningham representing Nativity, and Jackie Parisi and myself representing St. Charles, and we're going to try to set it up. We'll see if we can get Brother Ray to join us. I'm expecting we might be able to get 6 to 8 people. The group's been a bit disjointed lately, but hopefully we can get 6 or 8 people on it. And also, I wanted to ask, I know that there's a couple people who have, is it Tyrone Carter as the rep?
Yes.
Yeah, so I know that he is the rep, I believe, for Nativity. And so to me, it makes a lot of sense if he represents 3 of these parishes, maybe we should just tag team it and do one big call. It might carry more weight.
Yeah, I'm gonna say okay, but better for your people and for your parish and your pastor is if he actually has that you actually have the airtime from one parish with him. If you can get one parish. Now he may say,
okay.
"Oh, I don't want to do that." Well, Nativity on the east side is very different from Cristo Rey on the west side or from St. Anne. So
yeah, fair enough.
Plus, having a Zoom call allows you to get leaders more experience in your local church rather than count on Irma to run the show. So
yeah, no, that's fair. That's
right.
fair. We can try it on our own first, and if we strike out, maybe we team up.
Well, I think I can find out where he lives, so you can do a little home visit.
The number's good.
You're creeping me out, Bill.
No. I'm just kidding.
I'd like that information, Bill.
All right.
I'm going to remute.
I missed somebody here. Where am I? It's Jackie. Who is it, Charlie, from Nativity or St. Charles Borromeo? Who's going to do it? Charlie? I guess we missed it. Jackie Parisi, I think.
St. Charles, it would be Jackie Parisi and myself. And then from Nativity, Linda Cunningham.
Great. Thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
Bridget Theodora from St. John and Paul, actually from that district there. There's only one combined team. Bridget, you want to talk for a minute?
Bill, I think Bridget had to leave. She sent me an email. I know she's been trying to get hold of Wozniak before the election with no luck. I think he's been busy. So hopefully now that it's over with, I'll talk to Bridget, and we'll re-engage trying to get him to talk to us.
Yeah, she did say that she would certainly take the lead on that, though.
Yeah, she's been trying. I guess she couldn't get a hold of him before the election. That was kind of
Sister Val, are you still on the call from St. Clement of Romeo, Sister Val? Yes, and I will support Bridget, and we're going to reach out together as a group, our Seekers of Justice group. And invite the pastor to those. And we will invite, well, we got Father Festus and Father Steve, correct? Okay. Yes. Next one is St. Mary's, Sister Grace from St. Mary's. Are you there, Sister Grace?
Yes, I'm here. It's, yes, we will contact our representative. Yes, the pastor will attend. TBA on the organizer and 8 to 10 for the goal number.
Great, Sister Grace. I see you're there in the beautiful fall scene behind you. All right, St. Ambrose, Molly.
We're gonna try. Yes to both. I
Okay.
guess we'll try.
And are you going to organize it, or?
Evidently, I am.
How many
I would
people?
say 6 to 8 would probably be our goal. I would hope more, but I have.
All right, start somewhere. Marie Schimmelfenning, St. Peter and Paul.
Yes, for the moment, we're going to collaborate with St. Anne's because our group isn't that big right now, but we'll see where it goes from there. So yes, I would definitely invite the pastor, and I will probably be the organizer, maybe with Zach, because he's working a lot these days. And our goal, well, I'm going to say 10 for now.
Thank you. St. John Fisher, you can see there Suzanne Fabick, a member of that Peace and Justice Committee. She's going to do it. She couldn't be on the call today, but she said yes, and we're not sure about the number. But I think we talked about having 12, so you could put 12 down. From the Great Holy Trinity, St. Joseph, Tom Haggerty, or Tom, you there? He might have gotten off. Gary or Sharon, anybody from Holy Trinity still with us? Okay. And then Bill Simpson, are you there? Are you on, Bill, from Sacred Heart? Okay. I don't think we have anybody from St. Andre Bassett, but you can see the next line down, 39 St. Regis. Queso Faro is going to reach out.
Yes.
So Kay's going to reach out to them. I think the person would be actually Father Bursmeyer or Luann Saltz. Luann was on earlier.
Sure. Got it.
The others, we're not so sure, actually. Let me stop there. Rose, back to you, Chairperson. Rose.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, very much. So
I'm excited. I'm excited. And I hope Nancy, where's Nancy? If Nancy's still there? Nancy.
She had to get off.
Okay, well, communicate to them that we are responding to her challenge. Okay?
I will. I'll let her know. She was very grateful. So thank you everyone for listening.
Good, good. Well, it's been a very full morning. And I'd like to turn this over now to Marie Schimmelfenning, who is going to lead us in a response to the meeting this morning. Marie, are you there? You need to unmute, Marie.
Thank you. I'm still in a cloud, but that's okay. So just take a couple minutes to kind of take a couple of deep breaths. And as Rosemary said, it's been a very, very full morning with lots of ideas and thoughts, and not only in our hearts, but in our minds and our whole bodies, I'm sure. So I'm going to ask a couple questions and ask you to respond via the chat box, and then I can go from there. So ask, what was it that really inspired you today? Or what was it that you wanted more of? By a couple of words or comments. What enlightened you? What gave you pause? What even gave you a thought of more possibility of our working together as strangers no longer? So think about those and please put them on the chat.
Amen. Run, don't walk.
A people filled with hope. Call to share our common humanity. Listen and act for justice. Lots of words of listening and filled with confirmation.
I just say connection with people and across the region, connection with great people.
Be gentle, be human bridges. Listening, but truly listen, especially to the voice of those most impacted by human rights violations. So we heard lots of words of comfort, many words and comments of challenging, words of listening, but really listening on a deeper level. One that struck me earlier that I will end with is not only the listening on a deeper level, but really to talk less and listen more, and even to smile more, which came from the musical Hamilton. Thank you all as we continue our journeys, and to, as a dear friend of mine who parted a couple of months ago would always say, go gently. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you. I'd like to now just remind people that our next meeting is December 12th. That's a board meeting at 10, from 10 to 11:30. Is there anybody else that wants to announce, that needs to announce something?
Yeah, somebody asked Rose if this will be on the website, if this meeting will be posted.
Thank you for that reminder, Bill. Yes, we've recorded this meeting, so all of the meeting, the talk, and the chat will be uploaded to our website, strangersnolonger.com, I believe.
.org.
Also, .org. Thank you, .org.
Will the slides be presented there as well?
Well, it's the whole program, so the slides that were shown will be shown.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So that some of the direction for the call to our representatives, our legislators will be up there.
So that also means the driver's license information will be there as well?
Yes.
What was shown today will be on.